So today we're going to be talking about how to build customer success into a profit center. So for those of you who may not be familiar with this, there are many organizations, and not a ton, but there are some that have successfully created a framework on how they are charging for customer success. So think about it no longer as a cost center, but this is actually a profit center. And so today's guest speaker is Pejman Pourmousa, who's going to join us today. He is our SVP of Customer Success and Renewals at Lakeside Software. And so Pej, welcome to our webinar series today.
Thanks, Christy. Thanks, everyone, for having me. Super excited to be here and talk about some of the journeys on how to monetize customer success. It's definitely something exciting to do that has some great benefits for client success teams and for organizations in general. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of those best practices.
Yeah, when we thought about this topic, there is nobody that could fill your shoes on this very one. I know that you've been successful doing this at not one, but a couple of different organizations. So we're excited to hear all about how you've done that and the success you've driven for your team and your business. So I will pass it over to you. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and let's get started.
Sure, let's get there. So I am going to share the presentation and we can go from there. This is really about how do you monetize customer success, right? There's a lot of us have started customer success organizations, and you definitely hear about spinning them up and they end up being a cost center, a cost of sales, and so forth. Throughout my career, and I've been in customer success pretty much my entire career, it was how do I do this so that I have my own P&L? So that I don't have to go to our CRO or our CEO and beg for funds to hire more people to scale out something we all know really helps our customers renew at a higher rate and expand at a higher rate day in and day out. So just way of introduction, you can all call me Pej. My name is Pejman. You can call me Pej. I started in customer success in 2006, believe it or not. I think we could have probably trademarked the title customer success at that point. And I'll never forget getting on one of my first customer calls where my title was customer success manager. And the customer literally on the other side of the phone said to me, "Wow, what's a CSM? That sounds like the biggest BS title I've ever heard. What are you going to do to make me successful?" And that's how the journey really started for me in customer success. So that was a while back. Now, of course, we all know customer success being one of the most sought out titles in the industry and hired for today. Just a way of intro, I worked at a company called Integrity Interactive, really global compliance company. Grew that team over time. We were acquired by SCI Global. The last about 9 years I spent at a software security company called Veracode. Grew that team to about a customer success team, about 230 folks, far north of 200 million in product ARR, and actually over $50 million in CS business in profitability, which was great. That's how the team was so large and how we made the organization so successful. That organization acquired 3 times over my 9 years there. Most recently, I've joined Lakeside Software right here in Boston, Massachusetts, where I reside with my family. And that company, we're taking off and growing very rapidly. And we've already started to monetize customer success here, taking it from a cost center to a profit center, and really building out the customer success team. And for me, that umbrella includes renewals, customer success engineers, tech support, professional services, ops, and enablement. And that team currently is about 63 folks, with a plan to double that team over the next 12 months. So just for anyone who's wondering what Lakeside does, just real quick, fairly simple. We monitor endpoints, and I mean all endpoints. When it comes to help desk, we could tell you what's going on with your machine, whether your CPU is low while you're running out of memory, if your Zoom's been running for 5 days. We can tell you what assets are being utilized within your company's organization, what apps are being used, what version are people on, how do we move them. We help with VDI projects, we help with Windows migrations. You name it at the endpoint, we can basically tell you what's going on, and we help organizations really at the end of the day improve their employees' digital experience, and more relative than ever as more and more folks are going remote. And why is digital experience important? you can just see it right on the slide. Organizations with highly engaged employees, 270% more working hours per employee, 59% less turnover, 21% greater profitability. And believe it or not, 30% of an employee's experience is all the machines we're working on today, right? So if you're having a hard time with your laptop, you can't log in, this isn't working, your computer's not working, your keyboard's not functioning, we can tell you about all that proactively so organizations can fix it and make sure your employees are having a great experience. So with that said, this is how the Lakeside customer success team is set up. We have customer success managers who are really the trusted advisors working with our customers to really mature their digital experience process. We have customer success engineers who work with those customers as well to make sure the product's installed, up, running, and technical excellence, making sure we're working on the right use cases. If you think of a tool like client success, you would have a customer success engineer who would work with you on your success cycles or your policies, or making sure you're using each product, each part of the product properly. And then of course we have technical support for break fix. And then the other two teams we have is an internal ops and enablement team, really driving operations on tools like client success, Salesforce, making things up and running with our CSAT surveys. And of course, working on building certifications and enablements for our customers on our products. And we have a renewals team whose main job is getting in front of customers 6 months in advance to drive and execute renewals through the process. So this is the whole organization today, a very similar setup to what I've had in my past organizations. And really the question that always came up is, so how do you monetize this team? Because if you look at this team, if I just told you, again, Lakeside, not a huge company, about a third of it is customer success, man, that's a hefty cost for the organization. And of course, you meet with your board, you meet with your CEO, and they say, why do we need so many people? Can't the product sell itself? This is a big cost against our profitability. So how do you get against that? And if you think about it, there's a lot of things you can do, and I'll walk you through that. Just at a high level, just sharing these so you have them in your decks, kind of what are the roles and responsibilities of each of these groups. Most of you know most of these, but customer success, doing kickoffs, use case planning, making sure customers enabled online, setting up roadmap reviews, regular status calls with customers, making sure we're delivering ROI metrics to the customers, doing 30, 60, 90-day plans, and really defining roles. And of course, the success engineer driving that technical excellence with demos, dashboard setups, environment health checks, and so forth. And again, the journey, and thanks to Christy and Client Success, some of these journey slides are from your organization, aligning, execute, realize, and advocate. And what do you do in each of those with those different touch points? So big questions. Why do this? Why monetize customer success? And then I'll walk you through the journey of 3 different ways I've done it before with my teams. And really depends on the maturity of your organization on which one's the best one to step into. So why monetize? Well, first, can you build your own P&L and control your own journey? Man, if you can do that, there's no more going back and saying, why do you need 3 people? Is there expansion? What's the renewal rate? It's more, nope, this is dollars we have. This is how many people we can put on the team. By the way, customers are paying for this level of service, so we have to deliver it. Just I talked to it about before, my last organization, $50 million P&L we built out of the customer success organization with 40% margins. Really, I could tell you this, we got acquired and I never got one question about the team size, because if you look at our stat sheets, there's nothing to really ask about the team. It was a beautiful thing, and we're actually moving right towards that same journey at Lakeside. We've closed close to 2 million in business at Lakeside and customer success in just several months since I've started. From literally 25K we closed in Q1 of this year to where we are now. How do you get buy-in? Really, CS packages, for me, the buy-in is you get buy-in from sales and the customers and your internal group, because if you build the packages, it actually builds an exact roadmap of what your customer journey is, and more importantly, what you'll deliver against that journey. So no longer is there a question about what are we going to do as a CS team. It's, oh no, we sold tasks and obligations we're going to deliver against, and we're going to do that. And that's how you get buy-in internally. Value message, to me, it's always making sure we can drive positive business outcomes for organizations around the software your organization sells, right? Lakeside isn't a service company. We are a software company with the service and the CS branch that helps make sure that we're successful there. Does this have an impact on subscription business? Yes. You do not want to build a big CS monetized group where most of your bookings end up being CS. You actually have to work with your CFO to say, what's the acceptable threshold? What mix do we want to go to market with? From what I've seen, most CFOs will tell you 15% in services and 15 to 18% in services or CS monetization versus the rest being product. So 85% product. Why? Of course, product is close to 90% margins versus CS, depending on how much you sell it for and deliver against, you'll break even, and then over time, you'll make it a profit center. And really, who shouldn't do this? If you have a super easy product where it's instantly on and really there's no value touch points outside of checking in with the customer, it's going to be really hard to sell a CS package. But we all know most products aren't like that. Most products, there are many different touch points, like we just talked about, where customers are more than happy to pay for being kicked off, having regular check-ins with a customer success manager, having a success engineer helping them with live demos and engagement and driving that forward. In this day and age, everyone wants to buy some kind of package to go with their software to enable their success of that software. So let's talk about the journey, and I'll walk you through it, and it starts all the way back in 2011 and through where we are today. So 2011, there was an a la carte approach we used on monetizing. 2016, we moved to a bundle approach, and 2019 beyond, it's a value delivery approach. So I'll walk you through those different approaches. If you think about the a la carte approach, what I had done in this organization was we had what we called security program managers. Truth be told, they were CSMs who went really deep on our largest customers, and we charged for that. We told customers, if you want that white glove treatment, we'll charge you for a CSM who will work with you there. Then we had other CSMs who worked on everybody else, but it was free. And they weren't renewal reps, but they really were discussing to customers what they could do to get those business outcomes. Then we sold a la carte separately, advanced tech support, because we all know we have break fix tech support. And then there's typically other things your tech support team does that you should be charging for, whether it's writing API scripts for your product or building custom dashboards for your product for the customer. And then, of course, we had some consulting things we did for customers. And if you actually step back and think about the consulting gigs you do for your customers, typically, there is about 50% of activities you do nearly for every customer. So why not package those activities and make them repeatable? And really, we had 6 choices of those. Break fix was for all customers, and everything was sold a la carte. So I'm going to show you what those examples look like. But before I do, I'll tell you a little about the good and bad of the a la carte approach. Attach rates were only for our largest customers. So our smaller ones really didn't pay for CSM activities. CSM function was stood up and showing good outcomes, but customers weren't ready to pay for it. And there was huge value in taking some of those things we did as a PS organization or consulting or services and making them into a subscription business where if a customer needed those things, we were readily available to provide them. So what was bad about it? It was hard to report on what we were doing. It was really only focused on our largest customers. CSM was still free, and I will tell you it was a struggle to get more of those free resources. Even though I could show our renewal rates were going up, our net retention rates were going up, it was still, well, wouldn't that just happen without the CSM? Large conversation to have right in the boardroom. Customers weren't buying exactly what they needed. We kind of did this a la carte approach. So it was kind of like taking a child to a restaurant with hundreds of things on the menu, and they're probably not going to pick the right thing because it's just too much to choose from. I guess you could put an adult in that situation too and probably do the same. And so that was not great. Our incentives didn't really align, and procurement discussions were brutal because we were selling one of these, and one of these. So you get to procurement and they say, why do we need all of these different CS packages and services to go? So just to show you what this looked like, you would pick a tech support package, one of these, and as you can see, you get unlimited break fix at the top. But the advanced support was where the value was. It was things like onboard assistance. Well, you're going to pay for that. Upload assistance, helping them, whether it's an upgrade or an upload or an integration. Talked about integrations and APIs, or helping them compile certain things they need to do for your product. So mainly every customer would say, yeah, I need some of that advanced support. My team's going to utilize it. I'll pick one of these. And then we would tell the customer, okay, now which CS package do you want? Customer success package. We have these ones. And the first one was customer success management free. And guess what? Nearly everybody went with that because they didn't know what they were paying for. Our largest customers would buy some of the things all the way to the right. And you can see the different stages we had at that point. Again, we're going way back here, 2011. Somebody would say, hey, you know what? I do want a kickoff meeting, milestones, 30, 60, 90s. I do want to define roles and responsibilities. I do need best practice workshops. I do need regular check-ins when I'm executing. I don't have the resources to do this, and you would be helpful. So some of them would buy these. By the way, just to put in perspective, our Pro CS package sold for $300K a year. It was pretty much a dedicated CSM. I don't think if you look at the items on the left, anybody on this call couldn't say that there's a bunch of those your CSM does today, where you could build out kind of a menu where you charge for it. So that was really the a la carte approach. Then we said, is this still working? There's a lot of goods, but there's just as many bads. So how do we make this simpler? Because we were selling those, but it wasn't great. So we went to a bundle approach. We said, hey, why are we selling these all differently? Why don't we take the CSM, some of those great things consulting does, some of those great things advanced tech support does, and bundle them into packages where somebody just simply says, that's the one I want, and there was 6 sizes. In this scenario, all CSMs were charged for because we built small packages to large packages for different customer sizes based on how many licenses they purchased. You have to look at your license type to figure that out. We added the smaller customers. Break fix was still for all customers. And pretty much anything that didn't come in the 6 packages, truth be told, we almost stopped doing it because what we realized was these 6 packages covered 80%, if not more, of what customers needed. And we would start there. And if they asked for another thing or two, we would just say, great, we'll just add it and we'll just do it for you. We're not going to go through that. So the good was our attach rates were crazy through the roof. We started to attach to every deal. It was a much easier conversation with procurement. All you're saying is, here's your software, and you picked one bundle package to go with the software. CSM was paid for. Sales loved it. There was no more big menu a la carte. They could stand in front of a prospect, and typically they wouldn't even show all 6 bundles. They would say, here's the 2 bundles you get to choose from because you're this size customer. Which one do you want to go with? And we got to the point where our pitch became, you have to have the CS package go with the software because we want to make sure you're successful. Our tagline really became, you don't buy us, you hire us. And so you were hiring us as a software provider and a CS provider. We increased bookings and margins. Customers got all the core services they need. It was no longer they missed because there were so many items on the menu. And the incentives were very aligned to what our teams were aligned on: CSAT, product usage, billable utilization. The bad parts, and I'll show you why, a lot of it became focused on hours of delivery. It was hard to get the right mix per bundle. We were more talking about hours of delivery than we were talking about value delivery. Hence, while we'll talk about value being next. A lot of our customers were underutilizing their packages. Now, this could be good and bad, right? When you have breakage like that, it means you sold something, they didn't use it. Here was the beauty of these packages, and I didn't mention this on the first slide or this one, and I should have. These are all subscription services packages. These are not use them like professional services and we count the hours. It literally was, hey, you get 15 hours a month, you use it or you lose it. There's no rollover. So finance loved these packages because you could actually treat them just like ARR. You were just running rate every 12 months. If somebody bought a 120K package, we even roll the hours every month. There was no rollover. You use it or you lose it. Some customers would ask, can I add a special term that says I'm going to front load the hours? Sure. But guess what? From a revenue collection standpoint, you are taking of that 120K, 10K a month because you are using it or losing it. And it was a beautiful thing. And it became true ARR through our subscription business for all of the help I'm describing here. So there was no, if they were underutilized, they don't pay you like a professional service. No, these are called subscription services. You use them or you lose them over a 12-month period. And by the way, our renewal rate was nearly the same for our product as it was for these subscription services. So they ended up proving out that the CS subscriptions, once the customer knew their CSM, they knew their customer success engineer, they knew they had tech support and advanced services, they didn't want to get rid of it. They just saw too much value in what we were delivering. So I just want to show you what our attach rates look like when we did this. The first box is the beginning of 2018. The second box is really the end of 2018. Look at our attach rates for 50K and under customers, 50 to 100, 100 to 300. We went from 2%, 9%, and 42% to 29, 55, and 78 in under 12 months. This was to an existing base that previously was hardly buying any CS. And we were able to go in front of them and say, hey, we know what can help you out to drive you forward. And so our attach rates went from 58% to 84% on our customers in literally less than 12 months. It was amazing. By the way, by the time I left this organization, we were in the mid-90s on our attach rates. We basically sold them to every customer. So what did these look like? Super simple view. You had 6 bundles. You had your customer success manager, advanced support, security consulting. You had activities that you would get and certain amount of hours every week or every month that rolled off. And again, they didn't roll over. So you used it as a subscription business and they would come in or go away. And it was, again, these packages, the standard started at 3K all the way to enterprise at 200, enterprise plus at 280K. So you could literally sell these from your smallest customer to your largest customer. And mainly we sold the premium and premium plus. And you can see we had max number of applications or licenses that customer could have. So sometimes we had customers who would buy 600 licenses. We would actually sell them 2 enterprise plus packages, maybe even 3. So this was a beautiful one. To put it in perspective, this is what we're selling right now at Lakeside 2. We weren't ready for the value discussion yet, which I'm going to show you next. So please note, I'm not telling you you should go across the journey and go all the way to the right. You should think about which one of these journeys is right for your organization. And again, I just started at Lakeside under a year ago. We've sold a lot of these, and we've sold packages that more look like this than anything else. One final note I'll make is, again, we're all in this together. We're all part of CS or sales organizations. Look at the items on the left. I can guarantee you, I know client success delivers a lot of the things on the left to us as a customer. Program kickoffs, milestones, 30, 60, 90s, regular status calls, helping to build standard metrics and deliveries, setting up program goals, regular EBRs, all things that customers are willing to pay for if you set them up in the right packaging. So I'll move on to the last one, and then I'll make sure we leave time for questions, is we decided to say, wow, can we make these even better? Like, these are sticky, but man, the bads were, I'm going to go back. A lot of people got fixated on those hours at the bottom. Oh, well, we only use 4 hours this month, or we only use 2 hours. Should we move up? Should we move down? And it became a lot of back and forth. When we actually averaged it out, we had nothing to lose by saying there were no hours to worry about. And that all you have to think about is, what do you want us to deliver to you? What we realize is most customers don't want to just take up all of your time. Some of them do. And we all know we have those customers where they take up a majority of the time because they're the loudest and they need the most help. But actually, most customers want to be self-serve. And so you get them the right outcomes and they're willing to sign up for that. So what we said was, man, can we take this down to 3 packages? And can we put some of these things together? Again, consulting, support, customer success. Can we focus on outcomes instead of hours, like purely outcomes? Let's not even talk about how many hours they get. Can we pack more value into this? Can we adjust some services incentives to say, hey, customer success team, if you help us move these packages, you get a spot bonus, you get this, and so forth. Can we help them sell more supplements of those packages? How do we bring in, and again, now we're hitting 2019, more digital experience into these packages? So it's not only you're purchasing a bundle of people outcomes, but you're actually purchasing a bundle of digital outcomes as well. So access to your customer community portal, right? Access to regular webinars and demos on your product. And I'll walk through some of those things we did. And pre-sale support, how do you boost some of that to help drive these? And so here's some great things that happened when we went down this journey. We created these with sales. And so we sat down with sales and we literally, I remember it was like a war room. We had hundreds of stickies on the walls and said, what are the things customers tell you they need from our CS team? What do you hear the most? What are those outcomes? Don't worry about hours. Don't worry about Joe versus Susie or who's going to deliver it. I just want to know, what do customers actually want? Guess what? We did the same thing with our customers. I literally got on 40 customer workshop calls with my team. And we said, hey, you use our product. What do you actually need help with? And they would do this. They would say, well, Joe helps me with this and Susie helps me with this, but I don't know why I care who helps me. This is what I actually want to accomplish. And so what we actually learned was they weren't even stuck to the people that they were attached to. It was more, they just wanted the outcome. So when we were saying, you get this from a tech support and you get this from security consulting, and you get this from your CSM, it was actually confusing them because suddenly they were like, why do we have so many different people? They were like, I just want to know that when I want a status call, I can have a status call. And so it was really interesting and eye-opening to us because we always were like, well, they love, Lucy. We know Lucy has to stay on the account. We were wrong. They liked Lucy a lot, but they were actually more concerned about the outcome than they were the people or the hours. So we thought about less hours and more outcomes. How do we track these easier? How do we increase bookings and margins while doing so? And how do we bring in the digital experience? And all of that was goodness. So some of the bad was, we had to transfer a lot of customers. Again, we had great attach rates on that last packages. So now we're saying, hey, we're crazy enough to say we're going to take these great packages that are attaching and actually move every customer. And we did. 2,300 customers we transferred. We're going to monitor, and upsell started to become difficult because now what are you upselling if there's no hours to track, right? You're just delivering outcomes. But as an org, we also knew deep down, we were a software company. Did we really care about upselling CS? We just cared about there being CS involved in accounts to drive their success, to drive their renewals, to drive their net retention. And so we really had to leap deep in our hearts and say, yeah, this isn't about upselling. This is about just landing, attaching, and becoming super sticky. So this is how simple it got. And by the way, these were priced differently. On the other packages, I told you they were 3K all the way to 280K. These were just a percentage of your product cost. So if you went with the standard, you literally were spending 100K on product, 10K CS package got attached to it. It was a standard one. And you can see anything with a solid circle, you just got that. You could have a kickoff 10 times if you wanted. We don't care. You could use our Verify program. You could use our community. Very simple to do. What wasn't included were certain features that our smallest customers didn't want. They didn't want program management consulting. They didn't want CS consulting. What you wanted some features of, those are the open circles. And those open circles were ones where you would go ahead and say, wow, okay, on these open circles, I just need 3 sessions of those this year, or I need 10, or I need 15. And those were different types of sessions. And those were more the consulting things that we would have brought in the tech folks for. But let me tell you something. We never talked about who would deliver these for you. We never said it was going to be a CSM versus tech support versus advanced consulting. We just said, here are the outcomes we know you want working with us to be successful. You're going to need a kickoff. You're going to need planning. You're going to need some consulting on getting this working. You're going to need help with integrations. You're going to need help setting up your policy. You're going to need help optimizing your program through EBRs, where we come and consult you on that. You're going to want access to our community site. And by the way, that comes with a digital. Well, you can give that to everybody at literally close to no cost to your org. And so super simple, converted our customers, got these attached, and it was beautiful. And by the way, sales loved these because it was such an easy attachment. It would just say, hey, you know what, Mr. Customer, let's talk about what outcomes you're looking for. Well, I actually think, and this is just like selling a car, you're going to have your low end, your medium, and your high. 80% of customers are going to go towards the medium, right? Some are going to go towards the low, and a few are going to go to the high. And we ended up attaching these, getting them in there, and really driving a lot of success. So I'm just going to give you some takeaways, and then we'll open it up for conversation. Bundling makes it a lot easier. And don't worry about functions, just outcomes. Month over month run rate is important to put in the language that your outcomes will run month over month, or your hours will run month over month and expire. Monitoring usage is important for upselling and setting expectations. Focus on outcomes rather than hours if you can. But again, it depends where your company is with their maturity. Scale services through repeatable methods, whether it's tech or community. We used to give customers individual demos because we had one where there were a lot of end users. We took 2 people in tech support, set up weekly demos on a webinar. Our attendance rate was through the roof. And customer success managers and customer success engineers, if they got asked for a demo, we would say, oh, great. There's a demo of that product line on Tuesdays and Thursdays at these 2 times. You can join them anytime. Suddenly we were taking something we used to do across like 80 people, moved it to 2, an hour of their time a week, and just repeatable. And customers loved it because they would get on and they would be able to hear the demo, ask questions. And we never had to share who anybody was if they didn't want to. Sales training is a must. Don't do this in a vacuum. You're probably not selling these. Somebody else is selling them on your behalf. And so how do you work with sales, with your CRO, with the VP of sales, to bring in them with buy-in to say, yeah, we could sell that if you package it the right way. And don't just go live. We did a lot of incubator programs. What we did was we moved 15 customers. We tried the packages with them. Did they like them? Did they not? We did a lot of research before rolling these out. By the way, it was a big risk to go from our 2nd level package to our 3rd level financially too. So we actually did a ton of financial metrics to say, hey, if we move these customers from these old packages to these new value packages, what level could they end at? And we would put 2 levels. We would average those out and say, at the end of the day, we actually saw a net increase of over $1 million when we said we would do that. And our margins remained the same. So that was really exciting. And again, when you think about it, how do you start to bring in some of those digital aspects that are almost free wins? entitlements, community, tech support, weekly demos, knowledge base. You can add all these as value things customers get with your CS package. It's not just the people. It's all of these things customers ask for all the time. Workshops. We used to do monthly workshops, but it was one person doing the workshop on the product. So if you were workshopping a policy, it'd be join the client success monthly policy workshop. Great conversations run through our community website and so forth. So I'll leave it at that to say there's a lot you can do that involves folks and a lot you can do through a digital experience. But it's really, how do you figure out what value is to your customer? The hardest part is the graphic, the bar on the left. What is value to your customers where they're willing to say, yeah, I'd pay for that. Yeah, that's important enough that I pay for it. And unfortunately, for a lot of CS orgs, you end up doing this stuff for free and you don't realize your customers absolutely love it and actually would pay you for it if you just had asked them up front or packaged it for the sales organization. So that's what I had for today. Hopefully it was helpful. And it was quite a journey. We went all the way back a couple of decades and moved forward from there. But I'm hoping this was insightful. You got some good information, and I'm happy to take really any questions that might come up.
Tej, this was awesome. I myself took a bunch of notes, and I won't capitalize on the fact that you're our speaker and ask all of my questions selfishly. I'll save mine to see if we can get through some of them first. So there were a few that came through the chat. So we'll start with those and then we'll shift over to Q&A. So Edgar had two questions. First was, he wanted to know how you segmented your customer base and the CSM to CSE ratios. So you talked about customer success managers and engineers. What was the ratio? How did you determine that?
Yeah, sure. So what we ended up doing was twofold. I've always thought about at least my segments as small, mid-market, small, big, and then enterprise. And so for me, small is the customers, and typically, truth be told, it's usually about 25K or below that you look at. And these, obviously, I've worked for companies that have grown to larger enterprises over time. So what I did was take our customers and say, where do the dollars fall actually? And that's where I segmented customers. And the reason I say that to you is, quite frankly, to me, CS's job is very simple. Protect the money. Like, if you're asked as a CS leader what your job is, of course, to make your customers successful in CSAT and all of that. But let me tell you, I've written 4.8 out of 5 CSAT and had terrible renewal quarters. And let me tell you, that shit doesn't land with anybody. Oh, I'm not supposed to swear here, I don't think. So for you, you have to think about, how do you protect your money? I could tell you most organizations, at least I've been at, if you look at your customers over 100K, they probably make up 80% of your revenue. So the way I think about it is 80% of your resources ended up there. And over time, as you build out each market, you start to bring in more resources down a segment, and build it that way. Same thing with the SEs. And so to me, I always tell my team, hey, you know what? If we don't lose one customer over 100K this year, we're going to have an 83% renewal rate. By the way, I don't anticipate we're going to lose all of our customers under 100K. So suddenly you're looking and you're saying, wow, if we can execute on that, we're at a 90% retention rate for the year. I can't share Lakeside stats for this year, but I was just telling Christy before this call and Dave, we are gonna, since I've started here, we're gonna improve by literally close to 15% on our renewal rate. I'll tell you, my easiest tactic was, let's think about where we protect the money. How do we get super ingrained where that is? And by the way, I've made the opposite mistake too. Like, every customer is the same. They're all important. It's just by segment. Yes, every customer is important, but you also have to think about, at the end of the day, we all have metrics we have to hit. And so me, it's protect the money.
That's great. Okay, so Edgar had one more question. He said, what's the recommended renewals team size? So you also talked about having a renewals team that supported this, that I believe you mentioned starts 6 months out.
Yes, so that's a great question. This is one I will truthfully say I always struggled with a bit, and I'll tell you why. It's really the performance of the renewal rep. Some of my renewal reps literally can handle. This year I have three fantastic renewal reps. They can, I have more than that, but the three of the one top ones, they can handle about 8 million in business a year in renewals, and that it's a lot of transactions actually. What I'd like to do with renewal reps over time is actually the same thing I just talked about with the CS reps, is to think about, and what we're moving towards next year is we're doubling, almost tripling that team actually going into next year, is I will be segmenting by that enterprise 100K and above. And those renewal reps have a lot less customers, but a lot more money to bring in.
Yeah.
And then you go to mid-market, small, big, kind of within that mid-market, they'll have, again, more logos, but actually less dollars than the enterprise. And then SMB for me, like for us, it literally ends up being less than 4% of our business overall. So I'll have one renewal rep take literally the majority of our
All of them.
logos.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are a majority of our logos ended up with one rep. And you actually think about where, again, where the dollars are. That's how I think about setting up the renewals team is I can't lose this 80% of customers at all. So I need our senior, most principal renewal reps on there who are literally 6 months in advance. And I'll tell you, we had a shortfall today. A customer called today. We're going to renew them in Q1. They told us today, if you had come and talked to us earlier, even earlier than today, it's November, their Q1, end of Q1 renewal, we probably could have budgeted to move to your cloud solution instead of your current solution. And by the way, for us, that would have been a huge upside. So I was like, we missed it by a month. We needed to be there 6 months in advance.
Well, I'll tell you something, Patch. So what's funny is I used to, with other teams, depending on the complexity of the customer base I was serving, we used to make sure that one of the metrics we had to have a good handle on was when did they start their budget planning, because that's when we'd actually start the renewal conversation. And that could be very far from the renewal date, because it was all about when they started the budget planning, because we wanted to make sure that we were locking in as much revenue that we could. And we use that as the barometer of when we started the process instead of the renewal date, which actually changed how we managed the entire process. And that was actually made things a lot more lucrative.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd be surprised how many percentage in the renewal you'll get just by having a process around.
Right. It's crazy. Yes. Huge points. All right. Very good. So those were Edgar's 2 questions. So Linda Sharp also had a question. She said, how involved are sales reps or sales management in working with you? Who owns the buying committee execs relationship?
Yeah, sure. So for me and most of the orgs I've worked with, including now, our CSMs own post sales, building the relationships with execs, knowing the political map, working with those organizations and so forth. That is, again, to protect the money. So they will go as high as they can to know that we've learned who the budget owner is. They're seeing an ROI on the product, that we're doing those executive business reviews. Saying that, we always bring our sales executives to those EBRs, because they're working there to upsell and cross-sell, figure out different business units to get into and so forth. So it is a very tight collaboration. It's really hard to build. And truth be told, myself and our CRO are very close together working, and we've actually put mandates out there. Like every sales rep has to meet with all of their CSMs on a call every 2 or 4 weeks here. It's a mandate where they sit down and they, with their CSMs, go through their account list, and we go through, where are we? Who are the executives? Have we hit it? Who's owns what roles and responsibilities? On the flip side, CSMs have to do that every 2 weeks with their success engineers and their renewal reps. And so we kind of have 2 committees, but they end up working together in a way.
So do you create a pod structure? So is it a kind of like an equal pairing? So this salesperson and this CSM and this SE, they're all part of the same pod?
We try to do that. It's never a perfect math. I've tried that for a long time. And what I ended up doing is just kind of aligning with sales on region for the most part. So I know if I put our CSM Adam in the US on these account segments, he's probably going to be with 2, maybe 3 sales reps who work in that region. But it's never perfect. And it shouldn't be, because sales thinks of segments differently than CS. My job is to protect the money. Sales is to find new money and expansion money. So I might be working on literally a $5K deal, and sales might be saying, hey, that's going to be a $500,000 account soon. And that's where we really have to partner closely on those accounts.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. All right, very good. We have a bunch more questions, so we'll see how many we can get to in 11 minutes. So Adnan asked, how is the customer health score performing against renewal metrics, and how do you measure and track customer health score?
Sure. I could say in my last organization, we were very advanced. And the reason we were is we were 100% cloud-based, and we could see everything our customers were doing. To be honest with you, we had a super advantage over most companies. We could literally see everything from licenses used to deployed to engagement into the product and all of those things. To simplify it, at Lakeside, we're getting there, but we're not there today. So we simply look at a few metrics. Are we doing executive business reviews is one, engagement is another, how engaged is the customer going back and forth with us? How many of their licenses have actually been deployed and being utilized is another one. And we have customer CSAT. So we do CSAT across every tech support ticket. So we take that average. We take CSAT across, we send those out after every kickoff call and every EBR. So we take those and average them. Let me tell you, the biggest correlation I've seen is not NPS to renewal rate. It's not anything else I just talked about, other than, believe it or not, tech support CSAT has been my closest metric to customer health. I could tell you in my last org, if we were under a 4.6 out of 5 on tech support, we had a 60% chance of losing that customer. It was like to the point. It was crazy. And by the way, I'm seeing that here at Lakeside, super correlation to it. So we have a number of different factors. I found that CSAT in general was 80% directionally correct and 20% not. Why? Because we have great happy customers who get acquired by somebody who's using our competitor and their CSATs through the roof. And we don't find that out till 5 days before the renewal. Now we do use client success, and we have the pulse score, which is also a part of our CSAT today, or a part of our success score today. And so if a CSM flips that, say there's a competitor or they just got acquired, that drops us below a certain threshold where they'll end up red. But again, I like really numbers. And so it's hard for me to always rely on a CSM who has 40 accounts to know they're on top of all of that. So I'd say, to me, 80% of the time it's right. And there's still that 20% where it's probably not exactly where we thought it was going to be.
Very good. All right, so we got a couple more questions. Let's see how many more we can tackle. So Kara had asked, did you have any major pushback or resistance from existing customers when you were rolling this out? So I guess let's talk about, how do you, maybe customers, when you're in the infancy stages of moving to a premium model, how do you manage that communication, right? Something that they were getting for free, they're now being asked to pay for. So how did you manage that transition? Because I think a lot of folks that would probably try to go this direction, they would have to manage that.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest things to do. But what we did for existing customers, we did a lot of analysis on what were we already delivering. We actually built a deck for the CSMs to fill out for sales. So when sales went to the customer, they literally had a deck that said, hey, you know what we do for you today? This kickoff, this thing, the status calls, all this. Yeah, that's no longer, we're not handing those out for free. We can't, we're scaling. By the way, customer really relates to when you say to them, we're scaling and growing. And while we did this before, we kind of have to grow up as a company now. And this isn't something we can just hand out. You won't believe how many customers empathize with that. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I can't, have Robert for 5 hours a week for free anymore. It's like, no, you can't. I'm sorry. And by the way, here's your justification. Robert built a great, and by the way, they have empathy for Robert too, because he works with them. So they're really hard for them to push back and say, man, yeah, no, that's not how I feel. They'll look at the deck. Usually it was 2 slides literally, and it said, here are the things we've delivered, blah, blah, blah. Here's the package you need to keep this level of service. And if you don't, your option is there is a free service, but we'll be talking to you about once a quarter. And we're not going to walk away, but we'll be around once a quarter to check in on you. Nobody wants to talk to you once a quarter only. I could guarantee you that if you're doing a good job. I'd say the flip of that is you have to be doing a good job.
That's my next thing, right? Like you have to have value in the line items, right? It can't just be a checkbox. Those things actually have to be proven value, and your customers have to feel like they need those things, right? Like they've become dependent on those elements in order to have a successful partnership. So I feel like before you can even go to charge for it, you've got to be doing all of those things consistently well.
Exactly. Yeah. And truth be told, everyone makes fun of Facebook. I know it's old school and people say, oh, Facebook charge, I'd never pay for it. That's a bunch of BS. If Facebook charge, you'd hit that subscription button in 30 seconds and sign up. So, I mean, that's just how I think about it is if you're showing enough value where people can't put the phone down, it's going to be hard for them not to do it, especially if you pop up with Facebook said, oh, don't forget, you look at this every day, 8 times a day. It's like, oh, I do.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Let's see. We can probably get to one more question. So Stuart had asked also, how important do you think this switch of measuring renewal rate by value versus volume is? I moved my department to this 3 months ago and wow, huge impact.
So he moved to
so he asked, how important do you think this switch of measuring renewal rate by value versus volume is?
Huge. Huge. Good luck getting in front of your board. Let me tell you, I've told my board before I lost 50 customers this quarter, but I popped up a 95% renewal rate. Non-conversation. Great. Awesome job. Too bad we lost those customers. Or is their average spend 18K? Oh, okay. Try to have that out of the conversation when you get to the board and say, I lost 2 $500,000 accounts this quarter. They don't even ask you what your logo retention rate was. That's all they focus on is, why did you lose those 2 customers? Deep dive. Let's spend the next 8 months doing a root canal, right? And so I get logo retention rate. I get it. It's important. It helps with expansion and growth. But to me, like, protect the money. Like, that is your number one success rate here.
Okay, let's see. We could probably do one more. Okay, so we'll do this one. So the account execs are selling these packages, right? I think that's the way you talked about it, right? They're selling them. If so, how do you implement this for organizations that are thinking about starting to charge for CS services for the first time to existing customers? Do you have, like, if it's a net new logo team, let's just assume, right? And so maybe CS is managing everything in that post initial sales process. If it's divided that way, how do you start to broker the conversation with charging for services?
Yeah, I'll tell you the best thing I ever did. I took one CS member and put them in pre-sales reporting to me. Literally, he was a machine. He would get on every sales call. That was his only job, and say, hey, I'm a CSM. I work pre-sales. This is what your customer journey will look like. And if you go with one of these packages, and sales will talk to you about your options, but let me tell you what this is going to look like. We did that for our incubator for our first 20 customers just to see how it went. Because truth be told, I don't really trust sales doing the pitch on their own. We won like every one of those instantly because he had so much credibility on the pre-sales street, where he wasn't an SE pre-sales or an AE pre-sales, and it was low cost to move him over. And by the way, he actually kept a couple accounts on the CSM side too, so he still had that street cred to say, oh, by the way, I still work with these 2 customers. I would say take one of your folks, if you have the resources, ask them if they want to kind of be the CS pitch person. Let me tell you, it goes a long way. And then guess what? Once they do that for about 6 months with sales starts to take the calls themselves. Oh, I don't need that guy anymore. I actually heard him say 4 times now, I have his deck, I'll do it myself. So train the trainer kind of thing.
Awesome. All right, we do have a couple more questions, but we are just about at time, so we're gonna hold there. But very engaged dialogue here, folks. I will encourage you, reach out to Pej on LinkedIn if you've got more questions. He clearly knows what he's talking about. Go tap into his brain, his wealth of information, and see if we can all get to a place where we're creating profit centers at a customer success. I mean, I could tell you myself, I took tons of pages of notes here, even though I have your deck and I already know what you do. super, super interesting stuff here. And I really just want to thank you on behalf of myself and Client Success for joining us today. Really insightful conversation, Pej. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity. And again, if you need any help, just hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to talk and we can take it from there. Thanks, everyone, for the op.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. And so just a friendly reminder for folks, next Tuesday, we are not going to have our standard webinar series. We have our leadership offsite, and so we will be traveling. So we have a bye week next week. Think about football analogies, right? So we will not be having our webinar next Tuesday, but we will resume back the following week. So please stay tuned. We've got really great speakers lined up for the rest of November and December. So please continue to join us and block off your Tuesdays from 1 to 2 Eastern or 10 to 11 Pacific. Continue to join us, look for our topics, but really appreciate everyone's contributions, collaboration, the discussion in our chat, and just the commitment to customer success overall. So thank you, Pej, for joining us. Thank you, everybody else. And we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you.
Take care.